There's the music, Jess. It's that time again.
And Despina Priala is the principal of boutique law firm Priala Legal, having practiced property and commercial law on the Gold Coast for over 25 years, working with developers and real estate agents, both here and overseas. And she joins us to share her legal expertise and give some general advice on the latest hot topics every Thursday. We welcome her now. Good morning to you, Despina.
Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Wayne.
Morning, Despina. Well, today we're going to look at something very interesting regarding social media. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the news about social media in recent days for one reason or another. But interestingly, you tell us that symbols, we've all used symbols, those emojis, those little picture symbols to say different things on social media. But they can actually be bad as well, can't they? They can do good, but they can do bad too.
Well, exactly right. I don't think anyone's thought about this. And the question being, can an emoji have the capacity to be defamatory? Interesting, isn't it?
They speak volumes, don't they? You're not saying too much, but yet you are.
Well, a picture tells 1,000 words, doesn't it? Whether it's a symbol, emoji, emoticon, all sorts of things. So interestingly enough, it was determined recently in a New South Wales District Court case by Justice Gibson, it was, that the capacity is there for an emoji to have defamatory connotations. So it was actually extraordinary, and it's an Australia first that I'm aware of, where a court has actually talked about emojis, emoticons, and the capacity for those to have a defamatory meaning. And interestingly enough, in this case, the judge had to refer to something called, this is something that I've learnt as well, an emojipedia.
Emojipedia.
Like a Wikipedia and a dictionary.
A dictionary for, or an encyclopedia in this case, for emojis and emoticons. Okay. Interestingly, isn't it? Because this judge had to refer to a meaning. How do I find the meaning for this particular emoji that was used on Twitter?
Well, and so are there definitions for every single symbol?
Apparently there is.
Okay.
Yes.
Because when you think about it, those emojis, they're just little cartoon symbols, aren't they? Like a little smiley face and a little frowny face and all that sort of thing. So they're just cartoon symbols, but they're more than that,
They're more than that. And, this is how the society is developing it, isn't it? So
that's how we talk.
That's how we talk. People are time poor. They just want to, click yes, thumbs up, symbols to connote or a meaning or a sentence of what they want to say. So it's easy for them. And this particular case, unfortunately, in this context, in a Twitter remarks back and forth, that the judge found, well, this particular emoji that was used had the capacity to be defamatory. And the emoji that was used, interestingly enough, I don't see it very often, or I'm not on Twitter and I don't use emojis that much, but it was the emoji with the zipper across the mouth.
So shutting your mouth?
Yeah.
Shutting your mouth. So the judge had to look at the emojipedia.
What does it mean?
And what does it mean? What is the meaning of this emoji? And then look at that within the context of how it was used on Twitter. In a back and forth commentary on answering questions, perhaps of people putting something forward about a particular person in this case. And then the judge said, well, we better refer to Emojipedia and find out what the meaning of this is to then see, did it have the capacity to be defamatory in this context?
And this is a first in Australia.
It's a first in Australia that we know of, where a judge has actually referred to emojis and Emojipedia and then to make the commentary and remarks that, yes, it does have the capacity to be defamatory, depending on the context in which it was used.
I always thought informal on social media anyway, informal text when you're communicating in this way, but it can still be viewed as a very professional arena.
Exactly right. Like we've talked about in the past, where we've said, well, be careful what you like on social media, be careful what you post, what you comment, symbols, pictures. So now we have another case, and it's a first of its kind, but it's extended itself, where the judge has referred to the use of emojis potentially being defamatory. And I find that extraordinary on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's where society is moving, isn't it?
That's right.
Isn't there a guess factor here, though? Like, aren't you just guessing what the person was inferring?
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's a cartoonish sort of character. I mean, one person may see it in a certain way, but someone else won't necessarily see it like that.
Exactly. So we've talked in the past, and maybe some people are aware already, that at common law, over many years, people have referred to, and the courts have referred to, what would the reasonable man presume or infer or believe or would take steps in whatever the context may be. And the courts have referred to this concept of the reasonable man, and what would that person do, or what would that person believe would be reasonable steps in particular circumstances. Now we apparently are extending that, because the judge in this case referred to, well, what would the ordinary reasonable Twitter user infer from this use of this emoji in the context in which it was used. And I again find that extraordinary, as to now we have to determine what is an ordinary reasonable Twitter user.
What is?
That's
and
it.
what if alcohol's involved?
Well, that just blurs the lines in any situation, really.
It does.
It's
But you don't even know who's behind the keyboard half the time.
That's true. That's true. It's interesting that the judge has decided to make that differentiation. Okay, so it's not what a normal person or a reasonable person, what they I guess they call pass the pub test. So it's not a reasonable person in everyday life, but it's a reasonable person who uses Twitter.
That's right. And who is that?
Yeah.
Well, what
What
is
do they
that
look
benchmark?
like? Yeah.
What would they look like? So I think I can say fairly, and you might agree, that if you were in a pub situation or a cafe or restaurant and a hot topic came up and you wanted to pass comment or judgment, if you will, on a particular issue, I think the way that you would phrase your commentary might be a little bit different to you being in a room by yourself on a keyboard where you are posting things on social media, where no one's actually around you listening to the words coming out of your mouth. So I know myself, if you're in a restaurant, or you want to obviously do the right thing, be reasonable. If someone has something to say, you might, we'll take care and consideration in what you're about to say, because you're in a public place.
Yeah, that's it. You'll moderate your language.
You moderate your language.
Yeah.
So again, reasonable person. But that doesn't really occur, does it, when you're on social media? Because often you're by yourself. You're in a room, and even if you're with people, nobody knows what you're actually posting until they see it.
Some might have that regret the following day and go, hang on, I better get rid of that when I reread it. But as you've said before, you just freely put things up there to express sometimes. But now, if I give a thumbs up, that may have a whole new meaning.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. So when you're with a group of people, I'd like to think that you do think before you act, and you think before you talk, because we are
Filter.
Yes, right, and we have to have that filter, and we are in a society and we have standards that we like to all try and uphold. Most of us do. So with social media, it's a different playing field, because you don't have that environment where perhaps you're necessarily thinking about the person next to you and what they think you're about to say and what the words coming out of your mouth. So on social media, you don't actually speak it, you just type away. Yes.
And sometimes someone might pinch or kick you under the table and say,
That's
you
it.
can't
You
say
can't say
that.
that. Yeah,
But
yeah.
you don't have that when
Yeah.
you're doing it behind that keyboard on the PC.
That's right. And I think also, if you look at the social media overall, that's why perhaps the bullying has got out of hand, because you see people are doing it on their own. There's no judge and jury. They're just, people are making the decision that I can do whatever I like, and there is no standard that I have to uphold, and they just go on without thinking and post whatever they want. So in this particular case, it was an emoji, like we said, and you do have to be careful. The lesson from this clearly is you really do need to think before you post anything.
Before you hit send.
Yes.
Responsible.
True enough.
But even in a reply, that's
Yeah.
what I find interesting, because she or he wasn't the first poster.
No, so in this case, the emoji with the zipper on the mouth, the judge had to work out what that meant and deferred to Emojipedia, which apparently it means a secret. So perhaps trying to keep a secret or stop talking about a particular topic.
Yeah.
And in this case, this person, there was a context of back and forth commentary, and when a question was asked, the answer had this emoji at the end of a sentence. So the judge said it was fair to infer that perhaps this person didn't want to talk about what had happened to that person. And in this case, this person was accused of a particular conduct or offence. So the judge, without going into specifics, the judge made the inference that, well, an ordinary reasonable Twitter user would infer that this particular person actually may have been guilty of the conduct that they were talking about, whereas perhaps they weren't, therefore defamatory.
Yeah, okay. So therefore, someone who's not a Twitter user might come to a different outcome and a different way of viewing it than a normal Twitter user.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it was interestingly, as a lawyer as well, in this particular case, that the judge said, well, I don't need to defer to a group of other people, like a jury or perhaps an expert in this sort of use of language and emojis. I'm going to make the decision myself based on Emojipedia. And also based on, interestingly enough, a UK High Court case, which also talked about something similar with the use of emoticons, which is
So what's
apparently...
the difference there? Is that the one where you can actually give a winky face, but it's with the semicolon and the dash?
It's a keyboard. Some of them, like the smiley face and things, you do on a keyboard, with the little dots and dashes.
And with the brackets.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's the
so
difference.
as you do the hyphen, you can still create a smiley
I'm glad
face.
you answered
It
that
means
because
the
I
same
didn't know
thing.
the difference.
No,
It means the same
neither did
thing,
I,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
think that probably is
Yeah.
the only thing I can think of.
That's right. So it was interesting that the courts here, they still defer to UK courts because, of course, the UK is under a Commonwealth system like we are. But yes, the judge actually looked at that case, and it was another case recently where they talked about that, and again, emoticon potentially being defamatory. So two bases for the judges to look at, the Emojipedia and this UK High Court case, and then made the determination that yes, possibly this could be considered defamatory. And I think from this, it's going to just have a whole new realm of what emojis and symbols and emoticons will potentially have, and the meaning of that in the future. So the lesson: be very careful what you post on social media in any format.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
Exactly.
Say no more,
Loose
yeah.
loose lips, sink ships. Yes,
True
exactly.
enough.
It's very true.
Yeah, we will certainly not be hearing the end of this. This is only the start.
The start.
2021.
Don't get us started on gifts.
Yeah, that's true. This is Radio 97. We are talking law with Despina Priala. If you have a question that you would like Despina to answer, more than happy to help out. Just send us some details, breakfast@radio97.com.au.